Hello, Christ Church family. I'm so excited about worship this Sunday. It's Consecration Sunday. That's always a meaningful time for the church when families really think about the ways that God has blessed them and then prayerfully consider what God is asking us to give in return. I hope by now you've received in the mail a pledge card and your altar cloth, and you've had some time to pray and consider what God is leading you to do. This Sunday, we'll have worship at 8:30 and 11 o'clock, and there'll be a time, if you bring your pledge card, to present your pledge card in worship. If you can't make it to worship, we are going to have several ways where you can return your pledge card on Sunday. We're going to have a drive-by Consecration Sunday from 9:30 to 10:30. All you have to do is drive through, and there'll be somebody there to receive your pledge card. We'll also have drive-by Sunday evening from 4 until 6. And as always, we are now live streaming both services, 8:30 and at 11 o'clock. You know, when I first came to Christ Church, there were some real questions about, how is money spent? How do we make our budget? How are we doing financially? And so my commitment to you was every quarter we would have a financial transparency conversation together. We weren't able to do that at the end of the second quarter because of COVID. But now we can. We're going to do it today in a video, and so I want to share with you how our church is doing financially as of September of this year. You may recall when we started our financial transparency conversations, we had quite a few problems. We were still paying our expenses from our line of credit and had borrowed $60,000 to be able to do that. We'd also spent down our restricted funds account and had depleted it by $105,000 just so we could pay the bills for our operating expenses. We even had to reduce our apportionment payment by 32%. Apportionments is what we pay as a United Methodist Church to support the global ministries of the denomination. We have made a remarkable turnaround in simply 1 year's time. Pleased to let you know that we have paid off our line of credit and no longer have to pay interest on that $60,000. We have been able to completely restore and pay back our restricted funds. The balance is $92,000. We've taken all of our restricted funds and set them aside in a separate checking account now, so they are no longer commingled with church operating funds. Your designated gifts are safe and available whenever they are called upon. We are meeting our obligations to the denomination by paying our apportionments by 100%. In addition to that, we've been able to set aside $120,000 to use for what we call seasonal liquidity. During the summer months, our giving goes down a little bit and our expenses always go way up, and our giving does not always keep up with our expenses from about June through September. We can now borrow from that $120,000 during the summer months to continue to pay our bills and then pay it back by the end of the year when our giving increases. And in addition to that, we've been able to set aside $70,000 for the trustees to use for any major repairs that come up beyond what our budget can support. So if we have a major deductible to pay or a major repair to do, we can do that now without worrying about hurting the church's operation. One of the reasons we're in such a strong position right now, the main reason, is because of you. In spite of the pandemic, this church has been faithful in its giving. So far through September of this year, our contributions are $63,478 higher than they were this time last year. And in fact, our contributions are $48,800 ahead of budget through September of this year, which is absolutely incredible. At the end of September, we'd gone through about 75% of the year, and 72% of our pledges have been paid. So we are on track to finish the year strong. Most of our pledges are paid in October, November, and December. I want to show you the comparison of our income this year compared to last year so that you can see the impact of the COVID pandemic on our finances. As you can see, contributed income is up over last year, just like we said. We right now have $1.2 million in giving versus $1.15 million in giving. CEC revenue is the money that is paid to the church by our schools to help cover the cost of our debt for paying for the new building and operating expenses. You can see that it's dropped a little bit, and the reason for that is in 2019, the school was able to make a gift to the church of $65,000. This year, because of the pandemic and because of the tuition we lost, they could not make that gift, which is why you see about a $48,000 decrease in the amount they're giving to us this year. Ministries revenue has dropped off quite a bit, from $104,000 last year to $16,000 this year. Let me explain what ministries revenue is. That's a category that's really more about paying fees than contributing gifts. Ministries revenue is when people pay a fee to go to an event, and then we use those fees to pay for the event. It's kind of a pass-through. So while we do see a substantial drop-off in the giving for ministries revenue, we also don't have the expense that goes with it. So financially for us, this is a bit of a wash. And you can see a big drop off in other revenue. This is from fundraisers that we have not had and from facility leases that did not happen, which is why you've seen that amount of money drop by about $30,000. Even with those decreases, we're still under by only $100,000 for the rest of the year. So I want you to look at where we are year-to-date income versus expenses. So far, total income to the church through September was $1.45 million. Our total expenses are about $1.46 million, which means we've lost about $11,600 year-to-date through September. A loss sounds bad, but coming through the summer, that's a very negligible loss. I want you to see that while we lost $11,600 through September of this year, this time last year, our loss was $86,600. That means that we've swung our finances to the good by about $75,000, which is absolutely amazing. I want to give you an update on Roots and Wings. This will be our last update on the capital campaign, and from here on out, we'll just talk about our church debt and the progress we're making on paying our note. But as you can see, our loan payment and principal and interest now is $40,981 a month. We went into P&I payments in July. That meant that we had to increase this year's budget by $72,000. In 2021, we'll have an entire year's worth of principal and interest payments, which means we'll have to add another $72,000 to the budget. So all told, our budget will be increased by about $144,000 from now until the loan is paid off. There's no capital campaign planned for the near future. Our total debt right now is about $7.4 million. We can make our payments on that as long as the giving stays strong in the church. But there's no way we could raise a capital campaign that would meaningfully reduce that debt. So for now, there's nothing planned for a capital campaign. In addition to your strong support of our church ministries, Christ Church continues to extend itself into the rest of the world with its missions giving as well. Every year we ask people to make a pledge to Faith Promise. The money received in the Faith Promise campaign goes to financially support local and global missions through this congregation. This year we received almost $95,000 in pledges to support our Faith Promise ministries. That's an increase from last year where we received $91,660 in pledges. Now here's what's really exciting. We had $94,981 pledged, and year to date, we have already received $99,398 in Faith Promise giving. We have already given more than what was pledged to missions giving, and this is just coming through September. Of all of the money that's been received, $60,282,000 is distributed. The balance of it is all secure in our restricted funds account, and our missions committee is working right now to make sure that all of the Faith Promise giving goes into the hands of the ministries we've chosen to support. I also want to let you know that we finished an audit this year. We're going to have an annual financial audit that will look at the financial operations of both the school and the church as a whole. I'm very pleased to let you know that we have received an unqualified opinion, which is the best that you can get. The firm that audited our books is pleased with our financial controls, has found no deficiencies in our processes. As I said, we're going to have an audit every year so that you can rest assured that the gifts that you give to Christ Church are being properly stewarded in the way that you would expect a church to steward them. In spite of COVID, year to date, we've done pretty well. But we do have some headwinds we need to look at coming into 2021. Some things may have an impact, some things may not, but I want you to be aware of what's on the radar so that we can all pay attention to it together. First of all, we're not finished with COVID-19, and we don't know the extent of the economic fallout and the impact that that'll have on our congregation. Also, because of COVID, we've not really been able to take in a lot of new members since March. You know, every year churches lose members because they've moved or they've passed away or for many other possible reasons, and you count on new members coming in to replace them. We haven't been able to count on many new members this year because we've been shut down in one way, shape, or form since March. As I said earlier, our debt service is going to increase by another $72,000 next year, which means we'll be asking for an increase in the budget. And as many of you know, our denomination is facing a potential split over issues related to human sexuality. That may happen this next August, and if it does, that too may have an impact on how people feel about supporting this congregation. One area that does help us is the fact that we have set money aside for major repairs. But even with that money set aside, there's a lot of infrastructure work that needs to be done. There's a lot of equipment that needs to be replaced, a lot of equipment that needs to be upgraded. And those are going to be challenges that are going to be with us for the next several years. Here's my hope for the future. My hope is that when we end the year in 2020, we will have made our budget, and that means that I don't have to make an appeal to you to give extra just so that we can pay our bills. If that happens, then we can make an appeal to do things that advance and support the ongoing ministries of Christ Church. There's a couple of things I'd like us to make major investments in. First, I'd like for us to build our major repairs fund. The trustees have engaged an engineering firm to study all of our mechanical systems and our structure as a facility and to begin to make a real 5-year plan on upgrading, replacing, and repairing the major components of our facility. I would also like for us to make a major investment in worship. Christ Church has the opportunity to present the best choral music program that can be found in the Woodlands. But to do that, we'll need some resources, and so we're hoping to be able to raise some funds to do that as well. And finally, given the headwinds that we're facing, we do want to maintain a strong cash position so that when challenges arise, the ministries of the church can continue uninterrupted. As you can see, Christ Church is in a much stronger financial position, and all I can do is say thank you. I'm grateful to God for the way that God moves through this church, and I'm grateful to you as a congregation for hearing God's call and stepping forward with your generosity. It continues to be a sacred privilege to serve as one of your pastors.